Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm Sarah Watt.
And I'm William Chen.
And each month at Cinema in Context, we discuss two films, one current and one retrospective with some connection. It could be the same director, the same actor, or a similar theme. This month we are discussing Pretty Woman, which came out in 1990, and Anora, which came out at the end of 2024, start of 2025, depending on where you are in the world. The connection being they are both films about young female sex workers who get invited to be a rich guy's girlfriend for a week. Mm-hmm. And very different tales ensue, I think it's fair to say. Please be aware we will be spoilering both films. And yeah, I think in Anora's sake, there's some really cool things to be spoiled, so maybe
Definitely go and watch it.
I think go and watch it.
Please go and watch it.
Yeah, Pretty Woman's sort of been out for a long time now, and a lot of those moments are so famous in terms of the cinema landscape. So I think you don't have to worry too much about that. But yeah, Anora, I think definitely go watch it. So yeah, you may want to pause this episode and come back to it at a future date. All right, well, on the note of Pretty Woman, Sarah, give us a bit of an overview of this 1990s blockbuster classic.
Pretty Woman, starring Richard Gere, who was at the time quite a big dude, and the luminous 21-year-old Julia Roberts in absolutely her career catapulting role. Pretty Woman, 1990 film directed by Gary Marshall. A rom-com to the nth degree with a hint of drama and thrillerness to it as well. It's a wonderful story, that timeless classic derived from not just the play Pygmalion, but then also the musical My Fair Lady, about a street worker called Vivian, played by Julia Roberts, who is picked up one night by chance on, not Wilshire Boulevard, I should know, what was the... Hollywood Boulevard by billionaire businessman Richard Gere, who simply wants directions to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. But instead, when she gets into his sports car and directs him to the hotel, they develop a special connection.
Great. William, Anora, give us a bit of an overview of this film.
Director Sean Baker's latest in his American, sex worker crime adjacent comedy drama landscape. Stars Mikey Madison as Annie, a young, Russian descended sex worker living in Brighton Beach, New York, as she is kind of wrapped up in the rich and the powerful when she meets Ivan or Vanya, the playboy son of a rich, almighty Russian oligarch, and is whisked away on wonderful, ultra-wealthy adventures to places like Vegas before reality starts rearing its ugly head.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, who wants to kick us off? Where do we want to start?
Oh my gosh, let's go back to, when did you first see Pretty Woman? Can we start there?
Yeah, I can't remember. I've definitely seen it before, and when I watched it last time, I went back and looked at my IMDb rating. I only gave it a 6 out of 10.
Whoa!
I know.
What a rough
So definitely
guy.
upgraded. I've upgraded it to an 8 out of 10. And I don't remember, but I just had such a glorious time. I rewatched it again yesterday.
Yes.
And there is this sense of, you're watching 90s filmmaking sensibilities about, I think, quite a serious topic of being what it means to be a sex worker and the realities of that. And you can see the edges of the dangers of Vivian's life in the film, but it's played off with this sort of bubblegum, it's Disney who made this movie, like bubblegum kind of pop sensibility. But then the film just won me over and swept me away. And but I can't remember when I first saw it.
I first saw it in 1990, being the slightly older person around the table. I saw it when it came out. And there's something quite special, I think, about being able to see these seminal films, and really I mean that from the perspective of Julia Roberts' career, being able to, but do you know what I mean?
Sorry, so it's a pun. Sorry.
Well, it's both. But do you know what I mean? It's a formative moment in her career, and to have seen it contemporaneously, if you get what I mean, and to go, wow, this woman is incredible, because she is incredible in it. Not just looking, although let's be honest, the smile, the eyes, the hair, the tan, the everything is, but there's that really luminous, gorgeous Julia first. I mean, she was in Steel Magnolias or Mr. Pizza
Pizza.
actually before that. That's right. But you know what I mean? As I said in my intro, this is the thing that catapulted her into the, oh, hang on a second, who have we got here? Incredibly special to have seen it at the time. And also, let's be honest, in 1990, this was not as problematic as it might be in our discussion now. So I'd seen it several times over the years, and then urgently had to rewatch it. Do you know, guys, I actually thought, as this week was super busy, I can probably get away with not rewatching it. I've seen it before. And then I went, no, do your work, Sarah. Holy mackerel, put it on last night, got in late from the Led Zeppelin documentary, put it on at like 10 o'clock or something, and thought, oh, I'll just watch a little bit and then I'll finish it in the morning if I need to. And it is so intoxicating, I could not switch it off. It was past 11 by the time I was just over halfway through and went, oh, I should go to bed and finish it in the morning. Because it's one of those films, I realise, that if you know, in the olden days of flicking through TV channels, and if the film is on, you think, oh, I'll watch a little bit, and you keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
I could not switch it off. And I actually this morning felt strangely moved almost to tears in a couple of moments, which I thought, well, I don't know what that is, maybe that's perimenopause, but I mean, I don't know why, but I found it enormously affecting on this rewatch.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in terms of the charisma of Julia Roberts. She is phenomenal in this film.
Yeah,
You point at her and go, that is a star.
absolutely.
And we've had this conversation before, like, we don't really have movie stars like that anymore.
No.
Right? There's people who are fantastic actors. There's people who, you know, the Zendayas of the world who have the looks and have kind of the charisma, but not like this.
Yeah.
Not
No,
like this.
and that's
Yeah.
why I always say, as much as I despise most of Richard Curtis's movies, like I had no time for Four Weddings, and no time for, I know he wrote it, didn't direct. Love Actually, obviously he did. Hate those films. Notting Hill, I know he wrote it, didn't direct it. Absolutely one of my favourite films and most rewatchable films because of Julia Roberts' star power in a film where she's playing a megastar, and it's extraordinary.
And yet quite a different character in Notting Hill. She's almost depressed, but she's not. She's just very demure, isn't she, in Notting Hill?
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, she's got that great
Sass.
swagger. Literally
Yeah.
swaggers around the place. Yes, sass.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think there's something to be said about the sort of what do you call it when she's like a child?
Infantilizing.
Yeah,
Infantilizing.
also.
She's kind of a child, and there's something to maybe
look.
be discussed about that.
I mean, William, tell us what you think of the film, and then we'll come to
Okay.
the elements that you go, well, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gents, when did I last see Pretty Woman?
Which plane was it? Where were you going?
Oh, are you serious?
Okay, so to be fair,
It's a good plane film, right?
Oh my god, it's like the perfect plane film.
Yeah.
But I've seen bits and pieces of Pretty Woman across the years, right?
Yes.
I know basically how the picture comes together and
Yes.
all that stuff. But again, it was only 2 nights ago when I saw the thing beginning to end for the first time. Gosh, it's a blast of energy. Giddy, I think, is the word I would
It
use.
is.
Where it's not just her performance; it's the filmmaking. It's that soundtrack. My God, you want to talk about late 80s? Well, here it is, the
Yeah.
late 80s, ladies and gents. The color palette, like everything is so bright and saturated and in Hollywood.
Yep.
As you guys have said, this is a Disney property, so apparently I was reading online, the original script was way darker.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of cocaine involved. And the movie ended with her being thrown out of his car, and that was like the black comedy of the whole thing. And then Katzenberg came in and told them to sand off all the edges.
Yeah.
But I guess, thank goodness he did, because this movie rules.
Yes.
It's such a joyous experience from beginning to end. And you have as you guys have already said before, it codifies so many tropes that we now associate with contemporary, not just romantic comedies, but comedies like straight up.
Yeah.
Right? So you have the Hector Elizondo character, who is, I mean, we'll see lots of him turn up in Anora later on.
Yeah.
There's these archetypes and these story beats that, yeah, we saw before Pretty Woman, My Fair Lady, and everything leading up to, Pygmalion. But gosh, this does it in such a way that it is the blockbuster filmmaking version of all of these tropes, and it's a wonderful experience.
And it's so well written. That was
Yeah.
what I really noticed this time round in particular. For example, one of myriad instances, Edward does not actually want to say to Jason Alexander's heinous lawyer, Phil, oh, well, actually, I met her on the streets because she's a prostitute. He really tries not to say it, and it's only because it's brilliantly written that she has been spotted talking to the opposition, that he has to dispel that rumour and say, look, I actually met her because... And he doesn't... Oh, he does say she's a hooker, I think, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So never mind the language. But
and
anyway,
that's their first big kind of fight. Well, they're only really big fights, isn't
absolutely.
it?
But
Yeah.
I mean, he's pushed to it. It's not like he wantonly says to Phil, "Oh, well, you know, I met her on the street. She's a hooker," or anything. So I thought how well written that actually even the catalyst for their big argument, he was pushed to it. He didn't handle it that great. He definitely doesn't handle it great when he's talking to her. And then he comes out, and there is that incredibly moving scene by the elevator where he persuades her to come back in. Can I just mention the most wonderful little supporting character is the dude, the bellhop,
The bellhop.
in the
I laughed
elevator.
out loud at his character.
And he's lovely. And you know, it occurs to us that he's like he's the Greek chorus without
Yeah.
actually chorusing.
Nice.
And actually, it occurred to me that he is us because he's witnessing their relationship from the inside more than anyone else is. And his lovely little face thinking, oh, I hear them making up, or I hear them saying nice things to each other, or, you know, he's on their side, just like we are, which I thought was just charming.
And then that shot of the elevator door closing
That's
and Richard
right.
Gere in the mirror. Like,
Beautiful.
Oh,
so
good.
it is a well-made film. It is
Yeah.
not just about the analogy of a man on a white horse saving a poor impoverished girl. It's actually good and gripping and meaningful with the whole business
And then
subplot in that.
for the late 80s, early 90s to come round and say, like, no, I have saved you and all that stuff. I mean, nowadays it seems a little hokey, and then also the whole, like, Manic Pixie Dream Girl aspect. I kept thinking about that, and it's like, oh, you know, she's this bubbly ray of sunshine that's coming to save this man's life.
Yeah.
But even with all of that, like, again, in the context of the late 80s, early 90s, this was super progressive.
Yeah.
And really, really quite lovely to see.
Yeah.
I mean, the fantasy of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl is offset by the fantasy of this rich millionaire that's appropriate to have a long-term relationship with. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I think
that's right.
It's like it's all a fantasy. And just a couple of things. One was it's not just the writing, but if I think about that moment where the door closes, it's from a very slight gesture from Julia Roberts' character, where she sort of shakes her head at him.
It's a tiny shake to
such
just say you can go now.
It's
Yeah.
beautifully acted as well. And in terms of the script, I read a Vanity Fair article last night about the script and the kind of the mythology of this filmmaking journey. And the original writer said, look, I was happy with all the changes. You know, I was just a guy trying to make a living out of writing
Yeah.
scripts. I wrote this thing after watching Wall Street and something else. You know, it was a cynical take on the way that these people were destroying these companies. And you thought, how about if I smash together one of these people that is doing this destroying and someone who's affected by it? So it's kind of where the impetus of the film came from. But then he said it was not just that producer you mentioned, but it was a real collaborative... Katzenberg. It was a real collaborative process. I think Gary Marshall, he came in with this vision of it being a fairy tale and that being the piece that would attract audiences. And a lot of the script, I think the beats stay the same. I think the polo scene was introduced by Gary Marshall. The ending was
Can I just say, the
and
polo
contested.
scene is echoed from My Fair Lady because...
Come on, Dover?
come on, Dover,
Come on,
move
Dover.
your ass.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's that kind of whoop whoop where she does the
Yeah.
Arsenio Hall, you
Yeah.
know, whoop whoop.
Yeah.
That's a direct reference.
How great is that moment though when she goes, "Oh, it's so good, I almost pissed my pants."
Yeah.
That's right.
And then he goes, "Oh, she said it's better than Pirates of the Penzance."
That's right.
Yeah.
Can I say, I just miss the casting from movies in the 90s.
Yeah.
This movie reminded me, strangely enough, of Ace Ventura 2, When Nature Calls.
Good Lord.
Do you guys remember
No.
when Ace is strutting around and they're like in an African hunting lodge, and the whole lodge is inhabited by people I shall refer to as the snooty. And of course there's the famous line like, "You must be the Monopoly guy." And it seems like everyone, apart from the employees and Richard Gere and Julia Roberts, every single person in the hotel was just like, oh my word, we need more of these people in movies, please.
I think also just films didn't take themselves as seriously. I get really exhausted by the fascination with realism. And I mean, apart from your big blockbuster superhero films, I think a lot of these stories they become obsessed with realism, and it's like there is this melodramatic, heightened quality about this film that's just so fun to watch, and it's something that we saw a lot of in the 90s and early 2000s. We had a raft of films like this. They used to fill the DVD stores, video stores. They had great return on investment through those channels, through DVD hires and sleepover parties.
I think you meant VHS.
VHS, but DVD was well and truly in by the early 2000s, and it was still pumping.
By then,
pumping. 80s, 90s, you're right. And it's just so. I mean, now we get the versions of these are on Netflix, where it's almost too far in the fantasy land. They've lost a sense of humanity and character and nuance.
You're absolutely right. Like, people used to pump these out like mid-tier or mid-budget blockbusters, a dime a dozen. Really.
Do you know how much? So I went and checked this out. This was made on a $14 million budget, excluding promotion, which probably would have been another $14 million.
Excluding that necklace,
that
$250,000 necklace.
Well, I don't know. It could have been part of the $14 million. And it made $285 million worldwide, which is a huge return
for comedy as well.
Yeah.
Can I just say about the necklace? I know that we all know this. I'm sure that everybody listening knows this, but that is one of the greatest scenes because it is absolutely natural.
The closing of the lid.
Yes, and we rewound it this morning to rewatch just that moment to capture her and then cut or edit, you know what I mean? Because presumably she went, oh, sorry, let's retake that. And Gary Marshall went, no, we're keeping that in. But it's gorgeous.
There's another moment as well in the film, I can't remember, where I thought, I think that's improvised. There's a lot of little things like that feel really, really natural.
Maybe in the bath, there was some... there's a...
I know there was a gag where when she went under the bubbles, one of the takes, they all left the set, including the cameraman.
Oh.
And she came back up, 30 seconds later. And,
that's funny.
Everyone's gone. And of course, she had bubbles in her eyes.
Yeah. The whole thing is exuberant and gorgeous. I will just say, you see, this is the other thing, and you've all alluded to this, in the 90s, and you say, William, we'd had all this before with Pygmalion and My Fair Lady, but very few people will have read the play or the novel. Isn't it? It's George Bernard Shaw, isn't it? Is it a novel or a play or both?
I think it's a play,
right? So very few people watching Pretty Woman will have done that, and only a subset will have seen My Fair Lady. So, and of course, dear old Audrey Hepburn, she's not a hooker, she's a flower seller, isn't she? So it isn't anywhere near as risque. There's the same sort of, well, actually more cruelty, isn't there? Henry Higgins. Professor Henry Higgins. Oh, by the way, did you notice that that's the film that she's watching? So when she's watching the telly and she's in the lounge by herself, I'm so basic. When she's in whatever and she's watching telly and it's Audrey Hepburn and I'm pretty sure that's Rex Harrison. And I think, therefore, that is My Fair Lady.
Oh, no, it's not My Fair Lady.
Well, the funny thing is, that's Audrey Hepburn and I think Rex Harrison. So that's a callback to, you know what I mean? It's a nod to the original My Fair Lady. So anyway.
Speaking of the telly, that scene where they're watching
Lucille
I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
So good. And then when she mutes it.
Yes.
And you're still seeing the television. Oh my gosh, that was wonderful filmmaking.
Absolutely.
And I think
it's also lovely lingerie, I'm allowed to say.
Well, character-wise as well, there is such an awkwardness in that scene, and she's pulling down his pants and whatever she's doing, and he's sort of going along with it, and we never see that awkwardness again. Like, that is the kind of transactional part of their relationship, isn't it? And then it does shift and change, especially when she loses that blonde wig and he sees her the next morning with her
No, that's earlier. But yes, you're right.
What's earlier?
No, the blonde wig scene is earlier. That's not her. Oh wait.
No, it is.
Oh, you're right.
She's wearing her blonde wig and
she's on the floor and laughing.
You're right. Sorry.
And then once that wig comes off and she's got that beautiful red hair, things change. But
that's right.
It's awkward and it's funny and it's kind of sexy, but
it's slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Which I guess, I imagine I've never employed a
blonde bobbed hooker.
No.
With a heart of gold.
That's scenario.
Right. But you see, Richard Gere is a wonderful actor in this because Edward's face doesn't belie, albeit had done this many times, and he has. I at least inferred this conflict within him, that he's kind of entranced by this girl and definitely curious, finds her quite intriguing, but doesn't really want to treat her like a commodity. But he'd like to spend more time with her, so come on up, but we don't need to do that. But actually, if you... Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's the scene, I have to say, I do find it a little bit awkward, and perhaps it's jealousy, who knows, gentlemen. But in the scene where she's waiting for him to come home, she's got the dinner laid out, she's absolutely butt naked apart from the tie, and I think high heel shoes, and maybe not shoes. And he comes in. That is surely every heterosexual male's dream, is to come home to the pretty little wife and she looks like that and she's got the dinner on the table and the champagne ready and she's wearing nothing but a tie. Do you know what I mean? The cynic in me goes, yeah, just you wait, mate. Give it 9 months. That won't be happening anymore.
I'm just thinking, I'm not heterosexual, but I'll be stressed because the dinner's going cold and
the candles.
Yes!
It's like, oh, what do I do first?
Yeah, that's right. The safety in the home part or the seduction
just like
part.
Enjoying the food first.
Yeah.
But then, that's hard to do when you...
But they did wind up in bed after that, you see, I noticed, because the neck then cuts
But was
to them
the
waking
food
up.
gone?
Well, but it is charming. So it's got all the cliches of, I may be down to earth. She doesn't talk like that. But, I may be down to earth, but I'm going to show you what life's really about.
Yeah.
It's got the unfortunateness of the patronising, and yet she flips that, because then the scene that everyone loves the best is the Rodeo Drive one. The both scenes, the why won't you serve me, and then the you wouldn't serve me yesterday. Exactly.
Oh, here it comes.
That's
Big
right.
mistake.
Big mistake.
It's so satisfying, eh?
It's
Yeah.
so
and
satisfying.
it takes quite a while. I thought it happened a lot quicker, but it happened sort of the next day after various other scenes. I thought that, just talking about the flip of that initial sex scene, is that wonderful one on the piano. And it's so well filmed because it's not that explicit.
No.
But, you know it in a different director's hands with a different tone and a different rating.
Do you mean like Paul Verhoeven, perhaps?
Well, there'd be pearls everywhere.
Oh, my God.
No, but I just think that's such a beautifully sexy scene. Very, very impressive.
It's interesting when you watch it as a grown-up, and you pick up on some of because let's be honest, in 1990, this was not an X-rated film or an R-rated film or whatever. And
it's M on Disney Plus.
And I feel
Which I think
a little
is appropriate, right? Like, it's,
well, you don't see.
Well, there's 2 F-bombs and there's a little bit of nudity. Just a
there's
teensy
him
bit.
saying, I can't drive a stick shift or something, and she puts her hand down and says there's potential, or do you know what I mean? There's a couple of little things that if you're a young person, you might, God willing, not be able to pick up on.
About like Grease, the musical Grease. Like, there's so much more innuendo and things in that film than there have been this.
But maybe you don't get the innuendo as much if you're not in tune to it.
Absolutely not. As a kid, I wouldn't,
Yeah.
Now, we're talking about tone shifts, different directors, and a different rating. Should we talk about Anora, which definitely has a different rating?
Yes.
I think you see things right out the gate in terms of
kind of,
nudity.
Well, it's bottoms right from the beginning.
Yeah,
right from the
bottoms and
get-go.
boobs.
The opening scene is all G-strings.
Spots.
That's right, over writhing bottoms.
Well, kind of to keep this hype train going. Guys, Anora's amazing. It's so good. I usually say this in the past for movies I watch in January or February, but I think this might be my film of the year. Let's see what happens heading into the year.
Yeah.
I was blown away by this film. Everything about it. I've never seen a Sean Baker movie beginning to end. I've seen clips. I've heard your misgivings about Florida Project, Sarah, and the children.
I had to walk out of it. Not because it was bad.
I found it so stressful.
I found it so stressful.
Oh, I haven't seen any of his films before this, so I've got a lot of catching up to do.
Tangerine is great. I did actually see Tangerine, which was his debut.
Filmed on an iPhone, I think.
Yes, it
iPhone
was.
Yeah, it was.
With non-acting what do we call it? Well, people, real people. With humans. That's right. About a transgender prostitute who's trying to wreak revenge on her cheating boyfriend. And Tangerine made a big splash, quite rightly, from a filmmaking perspective, didn't it? As well as narrative and beautiful looking.
I think heading into Anora, I just did not realize that it was a flat-out comedy, right? I
wouldn't
knew
call it
that...
a flat-out comedy.
I was laugh out loud throughout. Did you guys not feel that?
For me, it was when the turn happened.
Oh,
I started really laughing when the kind of goons came into it. But before that, I wasn't laughing.
Okay.
I'm with him.
I wasn't laughing out loud.
It was just, this is going to sound weird, it was a real feel-good movie, right? Like, yeah, the ending is complex, but it gave me a lot of similar feelings as I had watching Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Like, it's really in your face, sometimes quite, extremely so.
Bottoms in the face.
Yes.
Yeah.
The performances are big, they're charismatic.
Yes. And also real, don't you find?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yeah.
She
Well,
is
apart from...
absolutely brilliant. Mikey Madison is brilliant because it's big,
Yeah.
but it's New York big, so it's gonna be big, and it's okay. It doesn't feel like you know what I mean? A comedy in the broad sense
Yeah.
of I'm doing a caricature here.
I think for me, when that veers into cartoonishness is with the oligarchs. So
Yes.
with Galina,
parents.
the parents, and really the son as well. Ivan is just, he's a goofball. And I
Yes.
guess why I was laughing in the first half of the movie, because he really won me over. You can tell this guy is just a no-good sociopath.
Yeah.
But he's loving being a no-good sociopath.
But also, to me, he wasn't a sociopath. He was just a puppy.
Okay.
He was just a spoiled frickin' puppy with way too much money who kind of knew he didn't want to leave America. I don't think he was deceitful with her.
Oh, no.
You
Well,
know.
he was straight up about the green card, right? He wanted to
But
marry
also,
her.
he liked her.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they had a good time. And he was so immature and spoiled that he didn't really seem to have any depth. Well, actually, right through to the end. Isn't that an interesting
Yeah.
ending? That actually he's a real letdown by the end. There is no white limousine and a red rose. And,
there's kind of a white limousine. It's just from a different person.
Yeah, well, no, that's right. And it's not a limo. But,
But oh gosh, I love that scene where before they have sex, he does this weird forward flip.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah.
And you can tell, similar to Pretty Woman, you can tell that this has been improvised,
Yeah.
or the directors really let them play with the material.
Yeah.
Because you don't capture those moments unless you're trying different things.
Absolutely.
And there's a moment where he's being silly and he's laughing at himself, and she's got her hand over herself laughing, and she's genuinely laughing. Like, both the character, but I think Mikey Madison is just genuinely lost at laughing because he's being so silly.
But maybe it works, right? It doesn't
Oh,
feel
absolutely.
like corpsing. It
No,
feels
no.
like maybe Annie is going, oh my God.
Well, when I did acting classes last year, and that was one of the things we were encouraged to do, is like, if you feel like you're going to laugh, just go through your emotions. Maybe the character's wanting to laugh in that moment, and it feels really real.
Or maybe the character's feeling uncomfortable and does an uncomfortable laugh. Or,
And then you can always cut that take, and you know. I just want to say, William, I 100% agree. I think this is, well, it's my film of the year because I've barely seen anything this year, but I
And
just
it's
had
February
such
the
a good
7th
time.
or 8th, yeah.
And I watched it, and I was sort of, half paying, not half paying attention, but I was sort of sitting back in my chair in the first part of the film, and the moment that the
goons arrive?
Tauros comes into in his garb, I was like, is this like a priest?
yes.
Didn't kind of connect to a way that it was. I literally sat up in my chair. And I was like, what is this? Like, I didn't know anything about the premise. And then for the rest of the movie, I literally had my elbows on my knees, like trying to move closer to the screen.
Wow.
And it was the most thrilling time I've had in this, like watching a film in so long. It really reminded me of Tarantino, but without the kind of explosions.
I was worried it was going to go all true romance.
Yeah.
So when the goons come in, and let's be honest, Yuri, I did write his name down, Yuri Borisov.
Borisov playing
Oh,
Igor.
I fell
just
in
fall in love
love
with
with him.
And
Big
you're kind of going, are
time.
they going to set these two up? Which feels like they're moving that way, but doesn't really feel like that's realistic. Then it just sets up that wonderful ending.
But the ambiguity is...
But you're still on tenterhooks from the minute the boys arrive, right?
Yeah.
Because they are there to sort of suppress, oppress, repress, whatever. And you know that it could turn at any minute. A little bit like if we want to draw... We are here to do connections between the two films. You know, with Jason Alexander going into the suite.
And she's so uncomfortable in that
Absolutely, but she doesn't want to ruin it for Edward by rebuffing him prematurely, and then he touches her leg, and then it's all over.
How brilliant. I mean, how refreshing the Annie, the Anora character, like she fights back. And I think that's part of the joy of that sequence, is that she really stuffs those guys up. Like when he starts vomiting, when he starts vomiting in the car, I laughed so hard
Yeah.
because I was like, this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah, he's about to die.
Yeah, and it's realistic as well because, if anything, that second, it's not even this, it's not an act 2, but yes, after the goons, are we allowed to call them that?
I think it is an
we
act
are.
2. I think that is an act 2, right? It's when they go
After
on the
they
road.
come in there, that scene or act is really long.
Yeah.
It goes on and on. So you can tell, as you say, Jeremy, it must have been improvised and they were free to just move with it because otherwise it would have been quite tightly scripted to be this beat, that beat, break his nose, da da da, he holds you down, they come in, say let her go, blah blah blah. No, it goes on and on in a very realistic sort of way. She tries to run away and they get her back and da da da.
So you know that in the opening sequence when she's going around going, "Hi, I'm Annie. Would you like a dance? Oh, let's go to the ATM." You know that whole sequence. That was lots of improvisation. They set up a club. There were lots
lovely.
of actors and extras in that space, and they just filmed her for a good 20 minutes. I think with a lot of long lenses going
Lovely.
around,
Cool.
just to kind of
Lovely.
capture those moments, and you feel it. And
Yeah.
there's those some of those moments are so awkward and strange.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
do your parents know you're here and.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff,
But
yeah.
fabulously real.
Yeah,
really.
And I know that she did a lot of research work with
She
sex
learned,
workers as well.
and she learned Russian, which I think is really impressive. And I love the fact that they keep it very real, that they can tell that she's not
the
dyed in the
payoff-
wool Russian.
The,
but
the payoff is so good.
Yeah.
Where, the parents are just completely ignoring her.
Yeah.
And then she tries to ingratiate herself by speaking Russian. I'm so happy to meet your family.
and she introduces herself as Anora. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the parents just turn around and it's like, your Russian is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just this wonderful little cap to the whole thing.
But how wonderful of Mikey Madison to have, I mean, it's speaking as someone around this table who learned a little Russian herself during the old pandemic times, using the old Duolingo. It's not an easy language. But
Speaking about the whole Brooklyn aspect of the whole thing.
Yes.
Just using Brooklyn and Brighton Beach as a setting is remarkable.
Why?
I'm not very familiar with Russian Americans and kind of the whole community there, but the film, in my opinion, just highlights this side of New York which is so rarely seen in film.
Yeah.
And I found it really. Maybe educational is not the right
No,
word.
I agree with you. I
but,
think
but
it
it
is.
was wonderful to be in that environment
Yes.
and to see like the local hands and the clubs and what the people are up to, and because you just do not see this in movies.
Yeah.
And for this to be thrust in the forefront in that act 2 and to kind of see, oh, so this is what the movie's about.
Yes.
It was so good.
And the coldness,
Oh,
and how
yeah.
that's such a big, and it becomes a plot point, right, with the scarf. But yeah, another thing, they did a lot of work around the colours of blues and reds to bring colour to the film. And you know how she has that tinsel in her hair, which Sean Baker said was a godsend. It was the costume designer or the hair and makeup designer who said that this is what women are doing in the industry, in the sex work industry. They've got this; it's a new thing, and when they put it in her hair, and it just glimmers and every time she moves her head, there's something kind of there. But sorry, the red scarf becomes such a great plot point later on in the film, and she biffs it back at the mum. But yeah, I just find that like the visceralness of being in this place, you feel like you're there, and she's wrapping herself up, and they're all freezing cold, and they're running, and just. Wonderful.
You know the scenes where they go into the shop where the old man works, and they're like
The candy shop.
Yeah.
right, and she's like, does she call him Vanya or Ivan?
Both, I think.
Yeah. Where's Ivan? He's a real dude, apparently. So that's just a real. I'm fairly sure I saw this recently.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I hope that I'm not wrong. That they just used. I don't know if it was the real shop, but it might well have been, and I hope they put it back together afterwards.
Yeah.
But he's just a real dude, and they did that often. I think is just use civilians.
It feels that way.
It
when
does.
Taurus is going around asking, have you seen this boy?
I think that was.
Yes.
I think that scene
Yeah.
was. They interrupted a real evening. And he's speaking in Russian as well, which was... I thought it was
Yeah.
interesting. He must have known that there was a Russian celebration.
Yes, absolutely. And this man is just a real guy, and his vulnerability is really kind of frightening.
I
You
really,
think-
really fell for
And
him.
I mean, this is the thing when I said, I was so relieved that it didn't go all true romance. This was not James Gandolfini smashing the crap out of Patricia Arquette in the scene where the goons have arrived and captured Annie at the house. Thank goodness, but you worry that it's going to. And you worry when there are lads there with baseball bats or whatever it was was that they were brandishing. Well, yeah, because they do. They smack that they're going to hurt the guy and that sort of thing. And it's actually pretty terrific that it didn't stoop to those levels.
Yeah.
And I guess I say that not because I don't know. Not because I guess I say that because I don't know. Maybe it steeps it more in realism. It makes it maybe more frighteningly realistic.
Do you know what I think it is? I think the film up to that point had done such, and continued to do, but they had done such a good job of the nuance of what these people's lives were. Everything feels so real.
Right.
And
It doesn't feel like John
character-driven.
Wick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and to do that would to fall into a trope, I think,
Yes,
that
I
we've
agree.
seen. Whereas for it to sort of play out like the way that it does, it again just adds to the colour, the texture of
That's
these characters.
exactly
Like,
right.
all of them feel really well realised.
Absolutely.
And everything in that movie as well was there for a purpose.
Yes.
And I loved the payoff with the ring, because I was thinking,
Yeah.
the ring, I think that's not the end of the ring. I thought the ring was such a good plot point.
Yeah, when it was taken from him, I was like, you shouldn't have told them about the
That's
ring.
right. That's exactly. We're all thinking, aren't we? Oh, girlfriend. Yeah, that's right.
And I did, and did some looking at the trivia online. Apparently, legally, it's very likely that she would get nothing out of the marriage because they'd been married for so short a time.
Yes, it
she
can
hadn't
be
contributed
annulled.
anything.
Yeah.
But the ring would be treated as a gift, so she would have very likely legally
Okay.
have been able to keep the ring.
And that, in a way, we talked about in Pretty Woman, where there's you've been treated really badly. Because she's treated really badly. For a minute there, she is about to win, and then the Russian wife, the mother, says, we will ruin you and your life
Yeah.
and your family. And she has to, Annie has to back down. And you think, oh no, we're rooting for you. And then that's that wonderful moment of going back into the store and saying, big mistake. Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's Jason Alexander being pulled off her, punched in the face and kicked out into the hall. And it's those redemption moments, thank goodness.
We need those, because regardless of the reality, and I don't know too many sex workers, and so I don't know what the realities are of what it's like to work in that area. But I would imagine it is pretty volatile, and you have to be quite careful and safe. And
Absolutely
so I think the
you
reality
do.
is far darker than
It
what's being
absolutely
depicted.
is.
And so to have those moments where we need those as an audience connecting with the character, otherwise it's just, what have we got to hold on to? So she needed to get the ring, even if maybe she wouldn't have actually got the ring.
Yeah.
I think we needed that to have gone through this journey.
And I do like the ambiguity, as you say, William, of her. Is it Igor? Is that his
Igor,
name?
yeah.
Her and Igor at the very end of the film. We know that he is following orders, but we also know that even within the scope of following orders, we know pretty early on and love him for being a sympathetic fellow.
And empathetic. I think
Empathetic
out
fellow.
of all of the characters,
Absolutely.
he's the guy that latches on to what's happening immediately.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the only one that kind of sees it from her perspective.
Yeah.
And I know that it ends in nookie, but I still like the fact that it's not exactly okay, we're going to go off and set up a life together and it all will be happily ever after.
It's also the Pretty Woman connection, right? The I don't kiss on the lips.
Yes.
Because throughout the whole thing, she's very cavalier about her ways of having sex and all that stuff, and she enjoys it
That's
sometimes.
exactly right.
Sometimes it is just for business. And then for the end, it's when he tries to kiss her on the lips that she breaks down sobbing, because she just cannot handle it, and everything comes, the events of
Exactly.
the last week come flooding back.
And it's
What was-
too personal.
My interpretation of that moment, I guess, the whole point is that it's open to interpretation. I get that, but for me, that was such a moment of her acknowledging that she's just really disappointed that she actually was very excited by this potential marriage. Like, she's clearly in it. Like, she's.
Oh yes, but when Vanya has, sorry to interrupt you, but that's what podcasts do. No, but Vanya has let her down, right? And then she's
Yeah.
gone to the club, right? And she has seen him dicking about with other people. So she knows, if not by then, she definitely knows then.
No, but she says to him, "I don't care about her. That's not a problem. We need to talk about the fact, like, what's going on. So I think she's in
I
the
see.
marriage.
Yeah, so she is carrying
She's
the
really
disappointment.
excited by this and about this change of life. And I think she likes him, but she's also, she's probably realistic about the fact that they just met. But he's providing to her quite a different life.
Yeah.
And I think it's just that disappointment and
I know from experience,
Brokenhearted.
getting personal for a second, I know from experience, unfortunately, that you can leave a relationship knowing by then that the person that you thought everything was going to be amazing with is 100% not that person or not right for you, and still carry the grief of losing what might have been. So I agree with you, Jeremy. She's not even necessarily harking for or hankering for Vanya himself, but it's the loss of what might have been, and not the material loss necessarily. The loss of, I would have had a family, we would have had a life together. Yes, it would have been rich, but it also would have been,
I agree.
you know, that kind of, you know what I mean? Not so much about the planes to Vegas, but this life. So yes, actually, I hear you.
I think my interpretation of the ending is just that she, in that moment where there is kind of the first expression of actual intimacy throughout the entire film.
Yeah.
Like the events of the last week just come rushing back, and
Yes.
she kind of reflects in that moment about all the adventures and the ups and downs and victories and disappointments.
Yeah.
And it just becomes too much. And she ends up sobbing in his arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this idea as well that it's almost like the last tool in her toolkit is to try and, you know, I don't know if seduction's the right word, or engage in some sort of sex act. But there's that moment where he sort of holds her against her will, right? There is that moment where he holds her head and she's trying to pull away. And that's when she sort of really starts to break down, isn't
Because
it?
he's trying for intimacy rather than sex. And she is used to keeping intimacy at bay by using sex instead.
And then how intimate is it that she does break down and just hug him and cry?
100%.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful ending.
That's your
And
vulnerability.
if anything else had happened, I would have been like, no.
And also, do you notice how the film is full of long scenes,
Yeah.
long held shots
Yeah.
where people get the opportunity to perform,
Yeah.
which is gorgeous, amazing, and absolutely the antithesis of Pretty Woman, which is absolutely a Hollywood, you know, action reaction,
Yep.
shot kind of thing.
I'm also thinking of the bookending of that movie as well. It starts
Which movie?
of Anora.
Yeah.
It starts with the lap dancers, and
Yeah.
you know, I think she's facing the camera, and the title comes up, and then this is effectively another lap dance, isn't it? But in this sort of rainy, icy,
Yes.
snowy car,
Yeah.
with the window wipers going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all you hear.
Yeah. Man,
Yeah.
what a competent filmmaker Sean Baker is.
Extraordinary.
Really, really good.
So this is, I think this is his fourth, right? There was Tangerine, Florida Project,
I think-
Rocket Man, which I did not see.
Red Rocket.
Red Rocket, not
Rocket
Rocket Man. I can't even, oh my god, that would have been even grimmer if Sean Baker had made
Crossover.
Rocket Man. Oh my
we should do
god.
those as an episode.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Um,
and
I
he's
think
nominated
he's
for Best
He's
Director.
done
for
a
this.
couple more, I think.
Oh, has he? Yeah.
So, Mikey Madison and Julia Roberts Julia Roberts was nominated for Best
Oh,
Actress.
was she for Pretty Woman?
Yeah, it was the only nomination it got.
Oh, I didn't look that up. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
and
Okay.
she had a powerhouse of like Meryl Streep for Postcards on the Edge.
Is
Kathy
that who
Bates,
she lost to?
Kathy,
Is
Kathy
Meryl-
Bates, Misery.
Oh, Misery. Yeah.
But it was the year that Whoopi Goldberg won for Ghost.
Yeah.
So it was a big year for actresses. But yeah, so she was nominated. And Mikey Madison, I don't think Mikey will win the Best Actress award.
I think it's going to go to Demi,
I
but
think
we'll
it's gonna
talk
be
about
as
that in
well.
our next podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna.
But-
Actually, just listeners, we're going to be recording our Oscar chat. I think I might release it before this.
Okay.
Okay.
So you know, it might already be out. You might want to go check that out. Our Oscar chat.
Yeah, good idea. But you're right, and I think, you know, it's all very well for me to say, but Mikey, you're 25. It's just an honour to be nominated.
And
but
she
it puts
has
her-
been not. She's someone that, like, again, to me in the substance, Margaret Qualley's someone that I've seen through the years in lots of smaller projects.
Yeah.
Mikey Madison, like, I'll never forget seeing her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And also in Scream 5, I think she's in
Yes,
Scream 5.
yes.
She's wonderful in that. So she's I think got a good career.
It's
ahead
funny
of her.
that you say you'll never forget seeing her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because she is not the first, because wasn't Sydney Sweeney in that as well? I think so. And I did not...
Margaret Qualley's in that, actually.
Oh, right.
It's
And
Margaret Qualley.
I
And
didn't take note of any of them.
Right.
So
I
then,
knew Margaret Qualley at that
For
point,
me, it's like, oh, this person, and then they go, oh, well, they were first in, and I'll go, oh, okay, all right, yeah. But I have to be honest, I didn't see Mikey Madison in Hollywood and go, wow, there's someone to keep an eye on. I'm just being honest about it.
Yeah.
But I think this is an extraordinary breakout film. Can I ask a question?
You can, and then we'll do final thoughts.
Yeah. And by the way, did you notice in Pretty Woman that little cameo from the cop is the Simpsons voice?
It's Hank
Hank
Azaria. I
Azaria.
saw
Yeah.
him. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
looked it up afterwards. That was his cinema debut.
Wow.
When's Birdcage? Is that 1990?
Five.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's 5 years later.
But can I just say, do you think that because I'm trying to remember now, Sean Baker wrote Anora, or is
He
it?
did, yeah.
Right. So I wonder how much he thought back to Pretty Woman.
Oh, it's like the two films are in conversation with
Right.
each other.
Totally,
right?
yeah.
And the whole, not like, both of them refer explicitly to the whole Cinderella,
Yes.
fairy tale. And they are both very, very contemporary takes on Cinderella.
Yeah.
One set in 1990, one set in 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Pretty Woman literally references Cinderella.
And, does Anora? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
I can't
Okay.
remember, but maybe if it does, it's in
Yeah, 'cause-
Russian.
'cause-
No,
'cause
I
I-
don't know. But
I know all the advertising and the interviews, they've been like, this is, based on Cinderella. And it's like a Cinderella type story.
I tell you what, Cinderella, she gets like a diamond or a crystal shoe, right? In the
Yeah.
fairy tale. And this one gets a diamond ring. Huh? And the other one gets a diamond necklace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh? I didn't put that on my notes. But I think it's interesting that, there are slight twists and that Jason Alexander appears nice but gets rapey. Igor seems rapey but is actually really nice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And things like that. But it is a funny thing, this whole
Did you have a question?
sorry, I did. Oh, sorry. What are you? What are you, a teacher? What are you running a
was like,
film festival
where's
Q&A?
the question?
This is more of a statement than a question. My question was: do you think that Sean Baker's Anora was? Did he purposely write
Right.
with reference to Pretty Woman? And we've established that, obviously, clearly, yes, he did.
I think it's also pretty cool that, I know we keep talking about the goons, but to me they are the heart of the movie. But yeah, the three of them. So Toros, played by Karen Karagulian, who apparently is in every single one of Sean Baker's movies.
Yeah, it's in it. Yeah.
Wow.
Garnik, so Vash Tovmasyan, and Igor Yura Borisov, like they feel like the Barney character from Pretty Woman, except given a lot more screen time.
Wait, who's Barney? Is he the guy?
The hotel manager.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
what was it?
Hector
Hector
Elizondo.
Elizondo. Yeah.
He's almost the same character from Princess Diaries.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah, the one that's he doesn't he end up with Julia?
Yeah.
With what's her name?
Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews' character. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But kind of like I love this notion of taking what would be usually just side characters and making them main parts of your story. Another thing that randomly came to mind while watching this was, do you guys remember Harold and Kumar?
I've never
The
seen
stoner comedies?
it, but
No.
I know of it.
Okay.
Ages ago.
So these three of them, the first and the third are very, very good. The second one, not so good. But the whole notion of that series is, what if the ethnic friends from your normal stoner comedy were the main characters?
It's
right?
a bit Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yeah,
almost.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that kind of
Yes.
just shifting the spotlight a little bit to shine on kind of stories that you wouldn't usually see in movies like
Absolutely.
this. And that shift in energy again was like you, Jeremy. I don't know if I sat up, but I went, now we're cooking.
No.
That's interesting because if you think of Laura San Giacomo, who plays Kit in Pretty Woman, $50 for you, honey, and $75 the wife can watch, and all that kind of. Yeah, she doesn't talk like that, but do you know what I mean? So suddenly, yes, she becomes the Mikey Madison character around whom there is this full story.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's an interesting and realistic difference is Julia Roberts' character obviously has to be almost a reluctant prostitute. The first time I did it, I cried the whole time and I just treat it like a job and so that we don't have any ick about it.
Yeah,
Whereas
it's
Anora
problematic.
is a little bit more just like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And she's not all traumatized by it, and sometimes they're jerks and sometimes they're not. And I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And that's definitely a progressive, it's a very Sean Baker thing to do, and it's a more progressive way, isn't it? Rather than patronizing the heck out of the person.
Yeah.
Because Ani is not patronized, or if they attempt to ever, they are completely slammed. Whereas poor old Julia, not poor old Julia, but poor old Vivian, even though Vivian points it out each time, manages to be patronized each time.
Yeah.
Even, and I adore her character, wonderful Bridget at the dress store who says, "Hi, Mr. Thompson sent you over. I'll look after you," and they treat her really nicely.
And she goes, "Oh yeah, you're his niece." She's like, "I'm not really his niece." They never are, dear.
Yes, I know, which is really gorgeous. I must do a shout out to the communities around these working girls because, and I loved we all love Hector Elizondo's character for being sympathetic and wonderful. And again, we meet him, she thinks he's going to call
unexpected.
the cops, he's going to send me away. He does his due diligence and then he wants to help her out. And it occurred to me, I know he's called Mr. Thompson. I don't believe for a second that that's his character's real name. He's talking Italian to some people to start with. To me, he is an immigrant, right? And the fact that he is trying to make it in Los Angeles, where all these rich white people are so snobby, and even Richard Gere, when he says, "Here's my card," okay, no, you don't want it, okay, fine, and is rebuffed. You know what I mean? So actually, these communities.
Is he rebuffed?
Yes, because he says, Vivian, she's a very nice young lady, and Richard Gere, and she's waiting for you in the bar, and Richard Gere says, "Oh, okay, thank you," and he's heading that way, and he says,
he tries to give him his business
That's
card.
right.
Oh, but he takes it at the end, right? Before he hops in the limo.
Oh, that's an
Yes.
interesting. I forgot that bit. So yes, that's the interesting kind of redemption, I suppose, because in the middle he's not interested in this hotel manager.
Yeah, I see.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's all this community of people who are ignored or treated badly or patronized. Yeah.
All right, final thoughts. Who wants to start us off?
I'll go. Both movies, great. Yes. Finally watching Pretty Woman end to end. You can see, as you guys have very, very aptly said, why this is the movie that launched Julia Roberts into superstardom. She is just so electrifying in every single scene. The various dresses she has on and like her expressions, just how she moves in the movie as well. Extraordinary stuff. Richard Gere is pretty good. I think he has a bit of a difficult role because his role is to kind of be the straight man to all the craziness that's going on.
Which apparently Gary Marshall pulled him aside after a few days of filming. He was being far more. And he's like, no. One person moves in this, one person stays still. Guess which one you are.
Right, nice.
So you
Good to know. Yeah.
Nice. But I did find his subplot about, the whole selling and buying of businesses and all that to be really compelling.
I found it really moving.
Yeah,
with the dad.
with the
Here's
dad.
an opportunity with the dad who says, "I hope you don't find this patronizing, but I'm proud of you."
Yeah.
Well, of course, his father. He's lost his father a month before.
We know that,
Yeah,
but
so
it's
lovely.
nice that it doesn't have to be pointed out.
Yeah. Apart from me pointing that out.
No, but I mean, it's nice in the movie that Richard Gere doesn't have to say, "That means a lot to me. You're like a father to me."
Yeah.
now. That's why I'm
Like,
making amends.
The script is smart enough to get you to that point and just, you guys got this. You got this. So I found all of that stuff to be really lovely. And when Vivian finds out about it, she was like, it's a good thing. And he said, it was a good feeling. Like that's all that's needed. And I've already said my bit about Anora. Just what a wonderful blast of energy this movie is. It's going to be one of my favorites for the year to come.
Wonderful. I just want to do a shout out to Julia Roberts eating a croissant. When she comes out in the morning and he says, "I don't know what you wanted. I got the eggs, I got the pancakes," and she sits, she's always trying to sit, so tapu, isn't it? She's always trying to sit with her bum on the table. He goes, "There are 3 chairs here." So she, okay. And then she sits with her leg up anyway, which if Auntie Sarah was there, I'd be like, "Put your feet down, put your legs down." And she grabs that croissant. I even drew a picture of a little croissant in my notes and wrote yummy. But the way that she picks it apart and the way she wolfs down the pancake. Oh my gosh, her performance is so on point. I can't differentiate between how glorious she is to look at. I mean, Pretty Woman has never been more. She's more than pretty, but everything about the way she looks is intoxicating, as well as this inner, this inner Julia, just amazing. And I have so much respect for Mikey Madison, not like Michael Madsen, for Anora. I thought she put in a storming performance, and if anybody was going to upend Demi Moore as a likely Best Actress winner, I would be absolutely thrilled for Mikey Madison to get it. I think her performance is sensational. And I hope that her career goes on to do these kind of roles and less of the Smile 4 and the Scream 6 and the, that kind of stuff. I'm sure it will.
I mean, Scream, if you're going to be in any of those franchises, Scream has got to be up there.
I know, but I'd quite like to remove her from, she doesn't have to do any more of that stuff. She doesn't need to be anybody's supporting character like that anymore.
Right. I back up everything the two of you have said. I think in terms of launching careers, I actually think Sean Baker's career, despite doing those previous films, I think he's now in a stratosphere of filmmaking that will open a lot of doors for him.
Yeah.
I can't help but think of people like Denis Villeneuve, who were in his position maybe back with Prisoners. And then you start getting bigger budgets. So I'm really excited to see what he does next. Anora just really, like I said, sat me out of my seat, and I haven't had that much of an enjoyable time. I've been raving to this film to everyone. So there's a lot of sex in it, especially in the first 40 minutes.
I said to my mom, who read my review and went, well, that sounds interesting. I went, Mother, this is not the film for you. But if it is, that Bridgeway crowd, they can just sit in that room by themselves without any of their younger generation kids, and they can watch this movie, and none of us need feel embarrassed.
I mean, it's the sex in this film is so well filmed as well, so well choreographed. It doesn't ever feel like I always know why it's there.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it's a key part of what is happening in her world and in their relationship.
It's not actually titillating.
No,
it's not like Fatal Attraction or 9.5 Weeks or those 90s movies that were about the sex being really raunchy.
And there's that moment where she sort of teaches him to slow down a bit and sort of enjoy it. And it's really great. And then Pretty Woman, I had such a good time. And sure, there's definitely elements that have dated, but hey, other 90s films have dated far worse.
Oh, yes. Oh, gosh, yes.
And I think this movie's done a really good job. I think because the movie knows that it's a fairy tale. It knows that it's a fantasy.
Yes.
That wonderful ending with the guy going, Hollywood's the place of dreams.
Yeah.
What a great tongue-in-cheek ending for this film.
Yeah.
Quite just completely different to the ending of Anora, which it's got such nuance and ambiguity, and we can read so much into it. It's pretty clear what the ending of Pretty Woman is.
It is.
And you can kind of take or leave it in terms of how much you buy into the cynicism of Hollywood. It allows you the space to either treat it as a fairy tale or treat it as a celebration of what Hollywood is.
And may I just say, and I'm sorry to bring in a further last comment when we've done last comments, but may I just say, in the 90s, it was not as egregious as I feel it is now to do that classic intertextuality thing where she goes to the opera with Edward and they watch Verdi's La Traviata, which is about a courtesan, and it ends tragically. And of course she cries.
And then he's playing the music as he drives up, isn't he?
Yes, but the point being, it's that whole kind of, there was another film I saw recently, it's like it's so on the nose that the book that they're studying is about a woman who's unhappy with her life, and here's a film about a woman who's unhappy with her life. Oh, that was Baby Doll. So, Baby Girl, Baby Doll.
Is that a good film, by the way?
It has good things about it.
Okay. Cool. And on that note...
But it's
seriously,
nowhere
let's
near
wrap up
as
there.
good as Anora.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema in Context. If you enjoy our podcast, then please share it with your film-loving friends. You can listen to Cinema in Context on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and where all great podcasts can be found. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, which are great places to let us know what you think of this episode, as well as give us suggestions for future films to discuss and compare. Look out for our next episode in a month's time. And until then,
Nor am I.